Good evening and welcome to On the Record, I-24 News' new in-depth interview show. Every week, I'll be speaking with key experts and decision makers from Israel and around the region on the core issues concerning the Middle East. I am pleased to introduce our guest tonight, Eyal Hulata. Hulata served as the head of Israel's National Security Council from 2021 to 2023. He served in the Mossad for some 23 years, including in senior positions, and was awarded the Israel Defense Prize for unspecified actions. Hulata is also a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Eyal Hulata, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So let's dive straight into it. We're exactly 2 months after the end of the war in Gaza, at least in its current formation. At this point in time, despite the international and internal criticism, was the outcome of the war favorable to Israel?
So we speak at a day where things seem a little bit more fragile than they were a few weeks ago. But we have to start with stating, it might be obvious, but I don't think it was considered to be obvious at this point that we got almost all of the hostages back. At the point that we record, there's one Israeli, one Rangvili, Zichrono Livracha, that we're waiting for his remains. The fact that all of the hostages, all the live hostages came back is not to be taken lightly. And I think that the arrangement that President Trump and his envoys, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, built, the so-called 20-point plan, has many advantages for Israel. Of course, there are sticky points there, naturally. One must ask if we could have gotten better deals or better terms before that. I think there's many political aspects to it. In any case, it's water under the bridge. It's not as important as it is at the moment. I think that reaching a ceasefire at this point, allowing not only for the hostages to come back, but hopefully for a process that would allow some kind of new structure in Gaza Strip is favorable. I think this is that's the way to move from military conflict into a more strategic, long-lasting arrangement. It doesn't seem within reach at the moment. We have to think, who will disarm Hamas? Will they agree to disarm? When will this ISF that President Trump takes pride in, the International Security Force, come in? Who will be serving in it? Will they be willing to disarm Hamas? How will they react when there are gunshots in the Strip? What's the structure for civilian governance in Gaza? All those appear in the 20-point plan. They seem a little bit far away. But by and large, I think that the decimation of Hamas military capabilities have been achieved a long time ago. I thought that we could have moved on even before that. And again, I'm among those who think that returning all of the hostages is very meaningful for us as a people, as a nation. So giving this combination, I think we're in a good opportunity towards the future. Now we need to make the best out of it.
I do want, before we move on, to stay on the issue of Gaza. Look, you were not in office on October 7th, but you were the National Security Advisor in the 2 years leading up to the October 7th attacks. Now, during your term, the National Security Council, its assessment was that Hamas is not interested in a conflict. And so are you in a position to say what mistakes the government you served under contributed to the conditions that allowed October 7th to occur?
So I finished my role in January of 23, 9 months before the war. National Security Council in Israel does not put a intelligence assessment in front of the cabinet. So the assessment that Hamas was deterred was not made by the National Security Council. It was made by the intelligence community. But this is not to say that I feel confident and happy with everything that happened. I felt in the previous government that the policy put by Prime Minister Bennett at the time to be very proactive against Gaza and respond against what he called every balloon and every kite, kol balon v'kol afifon. I thought that was a good policy. I thought that responding properly when things were small, that was a good thing to do. I don't, there are many things that will need to be put in front of an inquiry, and I hope that there will be a national inquiry to put all of this But I also thought that his decision not to allow cash to flow into Gaza the way it did before, I thought that was a good policy as well. Was it sufficient? Well, probably not. Was it important to continue and roll out the plans that he insisted on? That now everything is in the public sphere now. A plan to decapitate the leaders of Hamas. Should we have pushed this more rigor? Of course, in hindsight, one must ask what should have happened. I have no idea what happened between January and October, but it seems like this did not happen between January and October. So there are a set of things there. What I will say is that our government has put a lot of emphasis looking at the entire arena. When we did situation awareness and prioritize the threats, number one was Iran and preparing for a military raid on Iran, and we put a lot of emphasis on this. Lebanon came second because the risk of war in Lebanon and also the cost of war with Lebanon, if we're not prepared properly, was higher than Hamas. Hamas indeed was a third priority. I think, by the way, that if a government would have addressed the threats coming from the IC properly, even if it comes from different spheres, I would want to think that Israel could do better looking at the entire arena and preparing for something that could come out of this chaos. But I will say another thing that is on a personal note. Many people don't sleep at night since October 7. I definitely don't sleep at night thinking, what would have happened if I was still in position? What would have happened if our government was still in position? Would we have managed it better? I think there are many things we would have managed better. I think chances that the social fabric of Israel wouldn't have been torn the way it was. But this is all political considerations. Maybe you should put Bennett or Lapid or Gantz here in this chair to answer those questions. So from a national security standpoint, I feel that our awareness to what was happening around us was high, and the focus on Gaza was significant. I wish some of the processes we started would have continued later, but even that, I'm not sure this would have solved or allowed a proper way to deal with this.
Yeah.
Things we can't answer.
A lot of the main criticism is that the focus was so much on Iran and Hezbollah that kind of blindsided on Hamas.
Actually, if you raise this, I wish there was enough focus on Iran and Hezbollah in the month of the new government, because I think that if this was the case, then there was enough alert also for other fields. I don't feel that we didn't deal with Gaza because we dealt with Iran and Hezbollah. I think we needed to. I think the level of readiness that we inherited coming in summer of 21 was not high enough, and definitely not ready enough for those issues. You need to remember, this government started a few weeks after Guardian of the Wall, Shomer Chomot. A conflict with Hamas ended or occurred in May 21. The government started in July or June.
I mean, we're not going to dive too much into it, but I will say that, for example, Unit 8200 stopped covering Hamas's walkie-talkies in the 2 years before October 7th. But that's a military decision. That's not for now. You mentioned Iran as the main threat. You said in a recent interview that after the war with Iran, Israel, quote, cannot afford to return to the starting point in a year or two. There must be an end mechanism, military, political, or otherwise. So what does this end mechanism look like? What needs to happen today regarding Iran?
So first, let's start with the fact. I think that the 12-day war, the Israeli campaign, of course, with the American ending accord, Midnight Hammer, was it? I think achieved maybe, if not all, then most of what was conceived to be achievable from an air raid in Iran, and this deserves a lot of credit. Israel had the level of readiness and the equipment needed for that, and when the proper time came and the intel suggested that there's no reason to wait anymore, and President Trump gave a green light, I supported that. I think this was the right thing to do at that time. And kudos to the decision makers and to the operators that have done all of that. When that ended, though, we need to be as clear-eyed to say, unfortunately, I never criticize a president of the United States, but the Iran nuclear program was not obliterated. It was severely damaged, thrown back significantly. There is no enrichment in Iran at the moment. which is a lot, and there is no other alternative and pathways. But Iran still has
enriched uranium,
an unknown amount of enriched uranium. Some of it might be covered in rubble, but some of it might have been put away. I definitely don't know the answer to that. I hope there is a constant intel and very deep dive into it so that we will know where it is. And Iran's ability to install the centrifuges that it still have somewhere and continue the enrichment of that unaccounted enriched uranium, that's a significant threat.
So what do we need to do today?
So I think that from this perspective, first we need to understand what are the options. The worst case is that Iran will break out. Should Israel know this, and Israel definitely needs to be able to know this and not to be surprised with it, then we have all the things we need to go at it again and to go on another military raid. And I'm sure that there is a high level of readiness towards that end. I think this is the worst case by way of Iran trying to reach, but not a very likely scenario, because I think Iran should know that if they do this, not only will Israel attack, so will the United States. If they'll be dashing to a bomb after everything that has happened, all bets are off. The second option, which unfortunately I think is what Iran is trying to do, is to wait out Trump. They wouldn't do this action now. I'm sure that they might be thinking that in 3 years' time, when President Trump is out and a new president comes in, regardless of who or from which party it will come, it will not be as supportive to Israel than President Trump.
Because I think that's not taking into consideration Israel's new defense doctrine that is basically enforcing the red lines before it is too late.
No, I agree. But the question that Iran will ask is, will the United States of America and a new president give Israel the backing needed to attack in Iran? Because we definitely need to be proactive on all of the fronts, including in Iran. But when we attack Iran, we need the United States approval. We can attack in Lebanon without asking. We can definitely and need to attack Gaza with no approval, or Syria or any other else. Iran is a different story, especially if we need to stand in attack. So I'm sure Iran is cognizant of that. And to that, I will say that Israel has a window of 3 years that we need to use very, very wisely. We definitely need to prepare and potentially to operate before that window ends. But there is another option, and that is to put all of the pressure that President Trump can put on countries and force Iran into giving away and relinquishing all of the capabilities. It's easier to demand no enrichment now because there is no enrichment in Iran. When Iran says, well, we cannot give up enrichment, well, you don't have an enrichment to give up. The sites are destroyed. And once there is resumed, definitely intrusive inspection, then the material will be accounted for one way or another. And I think that a very heavy pressure campaign on Iran that does not exist at the moment, we need to be frank about this. There is no enforcement of the sanctions that have put in place in snapback. Iran exports oil now more than they did any time, I guess, since the signing of the JCPOA. About 3.5, I think, million barrels a day. That's a huge amount of oil that is exported from Iran at the moment, while they are in violation of all of the sanctions. So we definitely need to use this time properly. I wish Israel would use this, coordinate the pressure campaign with the Americans, put Iran where they need to, put them in a position where they cannot be playing for time the way I think they're trying to. There is water shortage, there is electricity shortage, there is a lot of food shortage coming into Iran. They're now in the most weakest point that they were, and they don't have an enrichment program. Now is the time to push them really, really hard, to use a military threat, which Israel has demonstrated, and with the Americans we can do this, and to try to reach a concrete, full dismantlement of the Iranian nuclear program while President Trump is still in the White House, because, I don't know what will happen after.
So they're playing for time, Israel's playing against
We need to play against time. Unfortunately,
Right.
what I feel is, on all of the fronts, Israel also has the habit to play for time.
So let's talk about one of these other fronts, Lebanon. The Israeli government decided to engage in economic talks with the Lebanese government, while there appears to be a parallel trajectory of escalating towards perhaps even returning to full conflict with Hezbollah. So how do these talks impact that other trajectory?
I have to say, I'm not sure I can answer that question. I was surprised, as I think many others, to see direct engagement between an Israeli official and a Lebanese official. I coordinated the Iran the negotiation over the maritime border with Lebanon. We did not have direct engagements with the Lebanese. That was a taboo. We're talking about an enemy country, and we worked hard to make sure that the military demands that we had on the maritime border would be accepted, and I felt we did well there. So I was surprised to see a direct engagement with the Lebanese government. If this is a part of an effort that would create conditions for the Lebanese government to be stronger and to dismantle Hezbollah militarily, I'd be happy to hear if this is the plan and this is what's going to do. I'm not sure that this is in the cards. I'd be more, if I need to weigh the options, I think that the option of another round of conflict with Hezbollah in the near future is probably more likely than not as it comes to Hezbollah, because I don't see the Lebanese government doing what they're expected to do by way of disarming Hezbollah, and I don't see the political pressure on them as well. If I needed to suggest what are the kind of things that Israel should do to exert pressure on the Lebanese government, I think that maybe direct engagement would be one of the things I would be waiting before I do, before I see concrete things done by the government. That's a big prize to let them meet an Israeli official in such a way. But again, I'm sure that there are more behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, and I would want to hope that this is part of a really strong diplomatic maneuver that would make the Lebanese government do what they're expected to do. Otherwise, Israel will need to act.
Yeah. I want to sidestep for a moment very briefly to Russia. Until the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, Israel held open channel of dialogue with Moscow and coordinating on Syria. So under this new regime in Syria, the Russians are still there, but is Israel also, is Israel allowing itself to be more critical of Russia today than it used to in the past?
Well, it has to, and that process started since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, not just because of the actions here. Definitely, when Iran started supporting Russia in the war in Ukraine, even towards the end of the time I was National Security Advisor, the tone towards Russia changed significantly, because they cannot hold the stick on both hands, as I don't know if this translates well to English, but in any case, they can't be
have their cake and eat it too.
Yes, exactly. They can't support or be supported by the Iranians and support the Iranians and also expect Israel to be careful or considerate to their needs. I mean, it doesn't work like this when Israel is looking at things from our clear-eyed national security lens. But as it comes to what's happening in Syria, look, we need to be, I think, very serious about what are our interests and what are our priorities. The fact that Ahmed al-Shara is keeping the Iranians out is definitely a good thing, but we need to make sure that this is actually the case and that Hezbollah is not able to operate in Syria under the nose of al-Shara, or maybe by his support or even looking the other way.
When Ali Larijani, the national security advisor of Iran, can't even fly over Syrian airspace, I think it's highly unlikely.
So,
that
this could be highly unlikely, again. But is it possible that while we're talking about it, Iranian militia also in Syria are able to smuggle arms towards Hezbollah while maneuvering in Syria that is not as controlled as it would want it to be? I saw a report that Iran was able to pass about $1 billion to Hezbollah since the Third Lebanese War. We don't call it like this, but this is what it was.
Since January of this year.
Right. Yeah. That's a lot of money. How did it get to Hezbollah? How did they smuggle $1 billion to Lebanon while everything is supposed to be closed from all fronts? So they have ways to do this, and I'm worried about it. The second thing is, of course, is Turkish influence. It's definitely there's higher Turkish influence in Syria than Israel should expect. I wouldn't be surprised if there are MIT, the Turkish Foreign Intelligence Service officers in Syria constantly, maybe even close to our border. That is not necessarily a good thing. And there are more reports about this as well. And Israel has an interest, and I think an important commitment to secure the way of life of the Jewish communities in southern Syria. It's important not just because we need a secure area in southern Syria, but because Israel needs to be very, I think, not only empathic, but also proactive in defending our allies, and definitely due to the importance of this to the Jewish community here in Israel. So all of these call for engagement. And there was very serious, I think, Israeli engagement with the Syrians. It seemed like this engagement definitely did not reach an agreement. Otherwise, there would have been one.
Accused Israel of obstructing every.
Of course, it did, and Israel, of course,
every turn.
And of course, Israel is accusing al-Shara, and as always in these blame game, the truth is definitely not residing just on one place. But if a Syrian president finds himself in a visit in the White House for the first time ever, and this was not used to force him to agree to things that are in Israeli interest and to reach some kind of a security arrangement, it feels like there was a missed opportunity there. Again, I know only what I know, and I follow only what I follow. But I wish that we were able to use such a huge diplomatic lever that the President Trump will inform Ahmed al-Shara what are the expectations of him, so we can be in a more stable situation. Israel does not need endless wars in any of the fronts. Definitely not in Syria. Syria for decades was the quietest border among our borders, and I wish it would restore this way. Definitely, if, as you say, Ali Larijani cannot fly over Syrian airspace, this should have been played to our advantage. And I feel like there is an opportunity there that is slipping away between our fingers. Again, I hope I'm wrong. But it doesn't seem like we're able to hold this and to harness it well.
I'm going to show you 3 pictures, and after each one, very briefly, just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. So let's take a look at the first picture. These are the Houthis in Yemen.
Well, enemies, radicals, and I would say another missed opportunity. This was supposed to be taken care of by others, not Israel. This was supposed to be an American problem. The Americans did not deal well with the Houthis throughout the years. And now we have an enemy that looked like this, armed like that, and with ballistic missiles that can reach every town in Israel.
Look, I think like with Gaza, there's problems that are others, but only Israel is willing to.
Gaza, we cannot.
It's also an Egyptian problem, but we do have to.
Right.
We do have to move on.
This is 2,000 kilometers away. Gaza is 200 meters away.
No, it's different, but it has similarities. Let's look at the next picture. This is King Abdullah II of Jordan.
Yeah. Well, that's a king that unfortunately does not act and hold his kingdom like a king. Unfortunately, I think Jordan and the fragility of Jordan and the Iranian influence in Jordan that is not new, but has dramatically escalated over the last 2 years, pose a threat to Israel's national security. I think it poses a threat to the king. I wish he would be forceful to act. When he decided to put the Muslim Brotherhood
to outlaw
them. That was a brave decision made by him. I guess he really felt the fire very close to him. But he has many threats that he needs to deal with. And I wish he would also more appreciative of the importance of the collaboration with Israel to his security, physical security, but also to the economic security of his kingdom.
Very interesting. And let's look at the last photo. This is MBZ of the UAE, Sisi of Egypt, and Naftali Bennett meeting at Sharm el-Sheikh in 2022.
This picture gives me a lot of pride. Of course, I was there in the room. You don't see me in the picture because all of us civil servants were sitting on the other side of the camera. The fact that these 3 leaders met in broad daylight with flags behind them resembles, at the time, what I thought was the culmination of a new approach towards Israel. This is true normalization, to have these 3 figures sit together. This was supposed to be the start of the future. This did not continue. The Negev Forum that convened a few months later never convened again. I think this was maybe, there was another meeting between Prime Minister Naftali Bennett with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, but the fact that he did not meet Prime Minister Netanyahu after that, even before the war started, I think is significant, and we need to be cognizant of this. However, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed did not discontinue the relationship with Israel even when the war started. The ambassador is still here. Our ambassador is still there. I wish it was also true for President Sisi, because there are no permanent ambassadors, neither in Cairo nor in Tel Aviv, with Egypt. But I wish we can restore this atmosphere in the Middle East very, very soon. It's important for the stability, the security, and also the prosperity of all of the pragmatic countries in the region.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have this week. Thank you again, Eyal Hulata, for your time and interesting insight. Join us again next week here at On The Record. You can find today's episode and all previous shows on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you for watching.